Good morning. Welcome. Welcome, Prime Minister. Welcome guests from the public sector, from the research community, from all Baltic and even Nordic countries. Welcome investors, big investors, but also we have here investors from startups, from scale-up companies. So a warm welcome to our event, Beyond Borders, Investment and Innovation. I'm Ryan Schneider, I'm the chairperson of FICIL, and FICIL is organizing this for the second time. Last year it was the same event, Beyond Borders, but we had investment and security, and it's the 11th edition of the Sentiment Index, so we are also in a tradition of these Sentiment Index events. When we were planning this event, we were calculating everything. We are thinking about other conferences before this, drone conference, EBRD event next week. We were really looking at the calendars of all politicians. The only event which we have not foreseen is that, today we will have a new government. But I'm even more proud and happy, Prime Minister, that you are here. And this is a sign of this really good cooperation we had in the last years. And I think we were moving a lot of things, and we were supporting the government. We were as well the critical friend during that time. And you were listening to us, and really a big thank you for that. And all the best for you. And I think it's really a good sign also for investors in Latvia that it's the last thing you're doing as a Prime Minister here. So thanks a lot. Of course, this event, which will happen in Sima during today, might take a bit of attention from us, but on the other hand, I think that's what we are used to. We need to assimilate to new realities, especially in times where we have really fast-changing technology. AI is pushing this even more. We have changing geopolitical realities, which will, of course, partly form new alliances, but we have to adjust to that, and I think that's very important. And the most important fixed stars in this process are, on the one hand, security. We were discussing that last year. But on the other hand, I think even more important currency, I would say, is innovation. Because innovation is really creating competitiveness of Latvia and of the Baltics. And that's why we need to work on that together. Competitiveness will enable investments. It will enable also prosperity of society. So this is really our goal as well for FICIL, that we really support innovation in the Baltics and in Latvia. It is a global race for competitiveness, and we have today as well guests from the US, because US is ahead of us in spending for R&D. And if you saw the Draghi report a few years ago, we have an issue in Europe that we're not spending enough. That's one thing, but when we spend more for mid-tech, so we develop existing technologies. But what we're missing, and the US is doing, is really have breakthrough innovations and also then commercialize them. And today we want to talk about that, how we can do that, how we can be more attractive in Europe for innovation. We have guests from the European Commission, from various European institutions, of course as well from the banking sector, but that is an important part as well in this whole topic of innovation. So I'm really looking forward to those discussions. In our research we were including as well, of course, all foreign investors, but we were including as well a research community in all 3 Baltic countries. And one main finding was actually there is a gap between companies on the one hand, on what they're investing in R&D and what they're doing, and then the research community, universities, labs, what they are doing. They're very good and they do a lot of things already very good, but there's a gap. And that's what we heard as well from investors, but we heard it as well from the research community. And today we want to work on that we're bridging this gap. And you have seen outside, we have as well different stands from universities, and we have here, of course, almost 300 innovators, I would call them, innovation communities. So I think it's a very good way to start this process here and today. 2 other main findings we have in the sentiment index. One is that we see there is still a lack of skilled labor, of skilled people for our needs. And I think that is a symptom of this gap, which is sometimes there between universities and companies. And the other thing, what also investors said, there should be more collaboration between the Baltic countries and as well Baltic and Nordic countries to really have a bigger nucleus of innovation. So we have today as well the Nordic perspective and that. So that I think will help us to create an innovative ecosystem for us. And then zooming in, of course, we have a lot of companies here today, and I can say for our company, for my company, for Schwenk, we are working at the moment really as well on a new innovation ecosystem that we are thinking how to be also a better partner for universities, how to come closer to them, how to give them certain projects, how to even, what we are discussing as well internally in the group, that we are funding as well startups in certain areas. So I think that's also not, we can't wait only on the government or on institutions, also the companies need to start working, and today I think is a very good day to do that. So I can only encourage you to network today, to talk to each other and have a start for this innovation. Let's have a short look at the agenda. So the first part is a presentation of research results. We will have results from AHK Business Survey. Florian will do that. Then Tatjana will report about the sentiment index and the results as well for this innovation research we had. And then Paulina from EAB will present their research about startup and scale-up companies. Then during the day we have 3 panels, which the first one we will look at the general investment climate and Baltic perspective. Then the next one is more Baltic Nordic perspective. We have guests from the ministries here and from all 3 Baltic countries. And then in the afternoon we bring in a bit US perspective, but also the European perspective from Commission and as well from the banking sector. And in between there will be a lot of time for networking and discussions. Should move, but it's not moving. A special thank you and goes to the supporters we have, Latvian Investment and Development Agency. Ieva is here. A big thank you for the support, and I think we had a very good cooperation in the last years, and I'm very sure it will continue. And we have as well good support from AHK, from EIB this time, and also from Riga Business School, who supported us with the sentiment index. And with that, I would like to ask you, Prime Minister, for your welcome and for your opening remarks. So the floor is yours.
Dear friends, dear investors. I'm here today, probably it's my last speech as Prime Minister for now. And I came today because Mr. Schröder invited me. We met just recently. We have been working together quite for a long time. But not just because long, but because very intensively. I was pushing through many ideas you had in your minds. I myself come from a private sector. I came into politics, and I remember being an attorney. It was for me a perspective that state should actually lay for business people like a red carpet, and you just need to go through. And to be honest, actually, that was my vision for businesses in Latvia, that we as a state, we should cut all the red tapes, all the obstacles you had in Latvia for not being able to move forward and not being able to get all the tools you need for succeeding in your businesses, for succeeding in startups, and for succeeding in innovation. Therefore, I really am curious. I don't know. They didn't tell me what the index will be today presented, but I really hope there will be some positive aspects of what we have been doing since I started to work as a Prime Minister. And to be here, it's my honor, but I'm here to assure you that it's very important for government of Latvia to stay stable. Stability is important for businesses. Green deal, it's not anymore fashionable to say that, but ideas for climate change. I know you have invested a lot of your resources on new policies for renewables. This is something I really believe for, and as you can see, with 2 wars ongoing in Ukraine and now in Hormuz, it is very much important even today, more even today, than it was before, to have our homegrown energy, as we call now in Europe. So then we are self-sufficient, then we can more be independent in price caps, and I really believe we cannot shake your plans, your investment plans. We just need to help you to go forward. Therefore, when Mr. Schröder spoke about innovation, you know, some years ago, it would not be something which could be said publicly because it was not on our agenda. It just didn't happen. But now, we have changed our legislation system for higher education, for universities, and I hope just in years to come, next year and after the next year, you will see the results where you could adjust more to programs of universities what business need. And we have been discussing a lot those ideas, how we can help businesses to get out of our people, of our higher educational schools, of universities, what business really demands now. Not what we have planned as a government or universities has planned 5 years ago, but what we need now. Because today, time is running very fast, and we have to run with the time. Capital markets is something which my government started to work on, and previously even on a European agenda, it was something we were just discussing, but now it's really on the table. And I hope we will have our first pioneers, if I may say so, or unicorns, and it will be just first steps, but then the next steps will be done, and it will be more and more companies who could be put on IPO from public companies, because it's important that we can trust on our national development in our national companies, And I believe it's a success for Europe, for business in Europe, for our economy, if we can work together. Private sector, public sector, innovation, banking sector, financial sector, and NGOs, our society. Because you know, if you want to go with some of your ideas in renewables, you have to talk with our public sector, you have to talk with our people as well. So, therefore, I wish you all the luck and success in upcoming months. Be smart in elections. Don't be afraid to agitate what you really want. Demand that from the next government. And I really can be grateful for all the support FICIL has provided for us as well. And we have done a lot of really changes and reforms because of your reports, because those reports are very professionally made. They make sense to government. And therefore, we can really see the changes, and I hope we will see them today. Thank you so much. Thank you for cooperation.
Thank you, Prime Minister, for this really kind words as well about cooperation. I hope it will be as well with the next government as well, because for us as investors, continuity, stability is as well important, and yeah, that's another important currency for us. The next speaker is now Paulina from EIB. You did as well some research, but I would ask you now for your opening remarks.
Thank you. Dear Prime Minister, dear Excellencies, and dear distinguished guests. I came to Latvia exactly about 1 year ago to establish the European Investment Bank Group office here in Riga. And the very first conference I attended was this one, Beyond Borders. And I remember that the sentiment index published by FICIL really guided me in setting the priorities, tasks, and also understanding the challenges for the work ahead. Last year, we focused on security and defense. And one message was clear back then and also today, that political security and stability, security and defense, are all critical and fundamental drivers of investment. Perhaps today more than ever, we need to also look at where we focus our attention going forward. If we focus only on the immediate challenges, we may miss the bigger picture and the bigger opportunity. That opportunity is the future of Latvia, a competitive economy, a strong innovation system, and companies that are not only scaling abroad, but actually growing here in Latvia. The EIB Group is supporting Latvia's innovation ecosystem. And we already have a very clear picture emerging of where we stand today. In December, I published the results of the EIB investment survey. And an interesting, somewhat mixed story emerged. 75% of Latvian firms invested in 2020-25. Nearly half of them were investing in innovation activities, and 3 out of 4 firms were using and improving their use of digital technologies. But there are also investment constraints, shortages of skills, uncertainty, high energy costs, and access to finance issues. What is clear is that Latvian companies do not lack ambition, but they still face issues with scaling. And this is why I'm so happy that today the theme of our event is innovation. And last year, I was here in listening mode, but today I'm actually coming with concrete content. The European Investment Bank advisory team is supporting LIAA in developing and scaling up the innovation ecosystem here in Latvia. We have two concrete tasks. Firstly, developing Latvia's future finance program. We have assessed the investment landscape, looking at innovation, scale-ups, competitiveness, and we are helping increase access to finance. And the second track, which is starting actually today, will be focusing on smart specialization. We will be looking at the smart specialization sectors where Latvia has a competitive advantage, and we will then present LIAA also with our findings and recommendations. Very interestingly, we are very much aligned with other partners here today. Today, multiple studies are pointing in a similar direction. So I am so pleased that the EIB is presenting today, together with FICIL, together with the Baltic German Chamber of Commerce, our results and findings about how to boost innovation here in Latvia. Today, more than ever, Latvia's resilience will depend not only on managing risks, but on building on its strengths. The European Investment Bank Group, as a counter-cyclical investor, is here to support companies in the country, especially at times when uncertainty is high. This is exactly where we step in and focus on building long-term competitiveness. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paulina. We will hear more of you later. Now first, as the first speaker, we have now Florian Schröder from AHK presenting Baltic, but even wider Eastern European perspective, like we did as well in the last years. And yeah, floor is yours, Florian.
Good morning. Labrit, Tere, Labas Ritas. Which countries will win the next decade? Not necessarily the biggest ones, and not necessarily the cheapest ones, but the ones that innovate fast, adapt quickest, and build systems that turn uncertainty into progress. Madam Prime Minister, dear Mr. Chairman, dear entrepreneurs, dear investors, dear representatives from the scientific community, EIB, I welcome you today to the topic of our, or the focus of our survey, innovation. And innovation, Reinhold, you have also said it already, is not simply no longer a competitive advantage. It's increasingly the price of staying almost relevant. In the past, competition was through labor costs, geography, or taxation. But today we compete about talent, research capacity, and institutional quality and innovation ecosystems. And we all know we are in a world that is shaped by geopolitical uncertainty now. And the Greek word of crisis has these both dimensions, one being the negative, but one also the positive, being a chance that you can grab. But innovation, I think, plays an important role here. The survey results we will look at today give us a very revealing picture of where the Baltic states currently stand in that transformation, where competitiveness is strengthening and where structural weaknesses remain, and we have, I think, there are a lot of to be discussed later on, and why future investment attractiveness will increasingly depend not only on cost advantages, but on innovation capabilities. So I will now, show you our results. We do this survey since about 20 years in about 15 countries in South, West, East Europe. And so that also makes it a bit interesting, like we can compare data over time, but also between countries. And overall, we have to say the Baltic countries are always in the top positions. And let's see how that changed. Last year, result, Estonia was the #1 among all the countries. Let's see how this year results will turn out. Yeah, that's what I'm going to speak about. And now we're going to make this the drum roll, yeah? Sound effects. We start with Latvia. How to read this? Green is good, red is not so good. Green means criteria has improved, red means it has deteriorated, weakened. And there's a ranking from, I think, 0 to 5, 0 or 0.5 or so meaning excellent, yeah, and 5 meaning bad. So what we see here is positive remains the EU membership commitment, digitalization and communications. Negative tendency, efficiency of public administration, policy predictability, availability of skilled labor. Yeah, my colleagues are handing out the detailed results now. And I have to say, this was done in March, April. So, yeah, the events of the government now was not yet known. Yeah, and what are the key challenges for Latvia? This is increasingly more structural, I would say, than really cost-oriented. Yeah, it's not the taxation system or the increasing costs of salaries and things, but it is about capacity, talent, and institutional predictability. Last week, I dedicated quite 2 days almost fully to vocational education training reform in Latvia. And we did the end workshop of our, we already active in more than 20 years in the sector. And there I would also, there is also a challenge. There's a skills gap in the vocational sector. Now let's look into the broader picture and take Estonia and Lithuania into the picture. Now, the bad news for Estonia is almost everything got red. But on a very high level, coming from place 1. But it really shows that the atmosphere in Estonia among entrepreneurs and investors is deteriorating, I would say. A very bad tendency. We Germans speak truth and clear. Sorry. Lithuania, mixed picture. Yeah? A lot of factors improved and a lot of didn't. Now, what we did is, please excuse, this is a bit like not really to scale, it is to scale, but yeah. So we put Lithuania on top of Latvia. So why we did that? To see where are the differences in the regions, yeah? And unfortunately, I don't have now time because, yeah, I only have like 4 minutes left. We have all these 20 factors, and there's a lots of, I think, juice and intellectual, wisdom to be taken out of. Maybe later in the discussion, we can highlight one or the other point. Can we make another drum roll? Because now comes the Oscar moment. Are you awake already? Can you make like, woo? Okay. And the winner is? Lithuania this year. Congratulations to Lithuania. Big applause. Estonia comes in at a very good second place. And Latvia, also, we have good news for Latvia. It increased for 2 places in our ranking, from 6th place to 4th place. But the difference and the delta to number 1, still there is. But the point here I want to make, the Baltics are actually quite well in all their frameworks and conditions, if you compare them to the peer group for which they compete. And I think here actually key challenges are more also the maybe depending with the knowledge about how great place the Baltics are. And that's something I think we should not forget, yeah, that there is kind of a context on this one. Yeah, let's go on. This is in writing what I just explained, yeah. And now if we look a bit in the structural challenges, I have pointed out some of the main topics that we found interesting, yeah. The 44 is about protectionism, fragmentation, and global economy. That is what the Estonian companies fear the most, yeah? And demographic shortage of skilled labor. And here we come to the vet problem. I don't think we lack absolvents of universities in the Baltics. What we lack is skilled labor. There's thousands of university graduates that get employed by companies to do skilled labor job rather than what requires a scientific kind of education. Yeah? And this is a waste of resources, time, and also puts burden on the companies because they have to kind of reskill the starting people there. Yeah? Maybe one sentence about Latvia, Lithuania. Political stability is a concern, yeah, and that I also would say would be good if we. I calculated the average lifespan of a Latvian economic minister is 18 months. Yeah, if you take the last 20 years, that's sometimes a bit short if you want to implement structural reforms. And yeah, I think there's a bit maybe thinking, but that's not our topic today. But I see that here. Yeah. Yeah. So innovation competitiveness, we also did a deep dive on that one. Yeah, I think time is running out. Access for financing and innovation, maybe I want to say. And that's also a problem, I think, maybe on cooperating and the relatively development stage of the capital markets here in the Baltics. Yeah. Yeah, that we did. German FDI champion is Lithuania, we have to say. Estonia had a bit bigger in the years before, and then one investor withdraw, so that's why they have the minus. It's a bit an anomaly, these 3 minus thingies. But we have a nice trend. We are growing, yeah, I can say. Yeah. I will conclude what we do with the German Chamber of Commerce. Maybe one thing you don't know, I mean, we have about 500 member companies, about 40 people, full-time staff working for us. And for example, we also organize 200 stands of Baltic companies going to fairs. So really we are into the export, we are really helping hands-on Estonian, Latvian, Lithuanian companies. And we sold last year 11,000 tickets. That means Baltic businessmen visiting fairs in Germany, yeah? And imagine, I mean, they are not just traveling for fun there. And there we are very proud of the really concrete work that we do. So, yeah, perhaps in the end, if you look at it, the deeper question we have here is not only which countries innovate the most successfully, but how something truly new enters the world. I mean, what is innovation? It's something new comes into the world. How does it happen? Real innovation is never simply the improvement of what already exists. The truly new is challenging routines, institutions, and the way we do things, the way we operate. The new is unpleasant because we have to do things differently and we have to think differently. And the systems in all our life, organizations, countries, they seek stability. Yeah? And that's why this innovation is so difficult. Organizations optimize for efficiency, and they need stability. Otherwise, they cannot optimize. And the societies protect what always worked in the past. And there I see a competitive advantage also for the Baltics, because here is a bit more open-minded and a bit faster adoption. I say this coming from Germany, and I see how Germany struggles to adapt to the new geopolitical uncertainties and realities, and how, yes, the tanker we have is shifting, but it is slowly. And you have the chance to be much faster, but it has to be realized, yeah? And I think it has to do with the history and the structural reasons, yeah? You had to adapt earlier, more often, yeah? And that's why you have this chance. And the digitalization gives you a very good, very agile framework, yeah? Last point I want to make is about cooperation. I think there's a lot of potential. We talked about security and defense. And I think there's also one point, it applies to the Baltics as well as to whole NATO or Europe in a whole. The main point, I think, that determines our competitiveness or our defense or resilience is unity. And the unity means we have to cooperate. We have to cooperate stronger, yeah? In the defense sector, in the innovation. What are the links yet, the projects between Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, linking the ecosystem in innovation or in digital? The X-Road in Estonia. Latvia has a different system digitally operating. Lithuania, a third one. Why not create one system for the Baltics and then try to convince Europe and bring this innovation to all of us? Because Germany needs it, France needs it so much, yeah? And you have so good solutions, but of course not very convincing if Estonia goes to Germany and says X-Road, 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 and they ask, yeah, what about your neighbors? Did they adopt? You can say Finland, yeah, but the others, no, they didn't adopt. So I think this turns, yeah, and with that I want to close, and because I got a nice view from our chairman. Have a good discussion. Thank you, Reinhard. Wait.
I didn't want to stop you because you're always so passionate, which I like. So that's what we need passion as well. And one thing, Prime Minister, you said in the morning that also there was this event, this drone, and you were there as well, this drone conference this week where Latvia was as well presenting very well, and we have a lot of things we can show. Yeah, so next speech is now about the sentiment index, now 11th edition, and I'm very happy that Tatjana is presenting today. And first of all, I would like to give you a big thank you because Tatjana was organizing this whole event, and she was also doing a lot of the collecting the research results, of course with the help of Riga Business School and Claudio. But yeah, you did a great job, and yeah, I think it's a great event. Thanks for it.
As always, last touches, you know, I forgot to put the watch on. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Indeed, as we already said, warm welcome to all of you, and I hope you really enjoy the presentation today. So, it is indeed the 11th edition of the Sentiment Index research, which this year has been conducted in collaboration with RTU Riga Business School, and big thanks to Claudio Rivera for his support. The focus of this year's research was on two topics. One is the traditional one, investment climate, and the second one, innovation ecosystem. We realized that there is a need to stimulate competitiveness of Latvia's, but also of the Baltic economic development, and we thought that what about this relationship between investors and innovators? And that's why this year's research explores this. And big thanks to all of you, to the foreign investors who participated in the study, to also the research organizations across the 3 Baltic states, which contributed and also came today with their wonderful presentation. So big thanks to all of you. So my presentation will start with the analysis of the investment climate in Latvia. So this is only based on the results of the Latvian foreign investors. Here we ask a traditional question. So what is the investment attractiveness of Latvia? As you can see, on average, it is 3.0, which actually is a very good result. If you compare it historically across years, this is the median value. It shows a solid performance, especially over the last 2 years. However, if we compare the distribution of responses, and here you can see 2026 and 2025, how well the investors assess the investment climate, you will notice that in 2026, there is a much more polarized outlook. So what are the reasons for it? Here they are. First, of course, geopolitics. It remains a challenge. It remains a concern, although I must say that many investors pointed out that this year, actually, maybe if we compare Latvia or the Baltics to the entire world, maybe we are still very stable and it is still safe. Looking at the geopolitical events all over, because this research has been conducted, this data collection was conducted in March and April this year. So then they looked at what happens in Iran and all the other things. So they said, okay, we are concerned still, we understand there is a very unfriendly neighbor. Nevertheless, we see also that the government is taking steps in the defense area, and there was some progress assessed already and indicated throughout several questions. But of course, political instability, and this is what it kind of resulted in today, but it was kind of anticipated. We saw the challenges in terms of the coalition and the change in decisions, and this uncertainty creates, of course, hesitation among the foreign investors in terms of their future investment plan, in terms of also the security of their current investments in the country. Institutional coordination, which is directly linked to the ability of politicians to agree on the priorities. The gap between plans and execution, which again is kind of linked to the political instability. However, when the foreign investor had to comment about, the good things about Latvia, the good things about the investment climate, all of them came back to the structural strengths, such as good infrastructure, talented people, especially people are flexible, they speak English, and so on. So there are a lot of good things. The bad news, or let's say the biggest problems which the investors see, and I must say there are not too many surprises. However, what we noticed this year, it was very clear, there is a growing frustration among the foreign investors about the human capital challenges, specifically human capital development, such as education, requalification, but also human capital availability. What is happening with the demographic policy? What is happening with the migration policy? It cannot be fixed within 1 month, within even 1 year, and it requires a structural approach, which unfortunately we still do not see. And investors reiterate over and over, no people, no economy. Of course, defense, it cannot be not highlighted. Innovation ecosystem, so here we looked at the collaboration between different types of stakeholders, and although there is a recognition that yes, the science, technology sectors in Latvia are development, we do not see the synergies between them. And lastly was the tax system. This was more the concern, although the tax system overall is assessed relatively well, but there are concerns that it will change. So the key message of the investors is always, please do not change it. The good things. So I would say, again, not too many brand new things. There is still the digital infrastructure, which is a major enabler of innovation, but also supports a good investment climate, has been ranked like at the top strengths of Latvia. Then, of course, physical infrastructure and connectivity, quality of life, labor costs, which still we are relatively competitive in terms of the labor cost, good talent pool, and then we see also development of different technologies and their integration in the market. While looking at the progress of the government over the last 4 years and thinking about the priorities for the new government, these ones arise. But I must say again, the first and foremost always was human capital. Please think about it. It's a long-term challenge. It is something structural which needs to be fixed. Besides that, of course, defense, tax policy, political stability, energy independence, very important. Energy is an enabler of industrialization. Bureaucratic burden, so over-regulation, unfortunately, still investors notice that, yes, the work is going, but perhaps the mentality or the approach that, the government tries to regulate everything, what is happening, and it sometimes becomes a barrier. Infrastructure, large projects are important, and lastly, of course, among the priorities still should be the improvement of the attractiveness of the foreign investors. This perhaps was the most puzzling chart for us when we looked at it. Each year we ask questions about the future investment plans of investors. And here you can also see historically how it looks like. So this year, it's a record year in 3 categories. First of all, it's a record low number of investors who plan to increase investment because it's 47% if you look historically, the lowest indicator. But it's not necessarily the bad news, because if you look at the number of investors who do not plan to participate, they know it for sure. It's actually a very low indicator. It's only 16%. The biggest question is the 37% of investors who are hesitant, who say, well, it depends, it's conditional. The key factors are the same: geopolitics, macroeconomic stability, political stability, and then other reforms, and the ability of the new government to execute the necessary reforms. So in that sense, I would say if the new government succeeds to shift this 37% to the yes category, it will be great news for Latvia. And now we are switching to the innovation ecosystem part. So here we have conducted research once again with the 3 research communities, with the largest research organizations across the Baltic states. In addition, we also asked the foreign investors, what do they think about the innovation ecosystem? Overall, all the foreign investors, because we interviewed, they survey all the largest foreign investors, they all do some kind of innovation. Process innovation, of course, features at the top. It's mostly driven right now by AI, data analytics, and automation technologies. But when we ask the foreign investors, with whom do you collaborate when you conduct RD&I activities? And here you can see that most of them actually collaborate with the private sector actors, predominantly large companies, then startups, SMEs, and with universities, only 12%. We asked the same questions to the researchers. What do you think? The research community, most of them, most actively collaborate with universities. And these once again showed us that there are 2 worlds. The private sector collaborates with the private sector. The research community collaborates mostly with the research community. Of course, there are differences. Like, let's say in Lithuania, you can see that this share of respondents is a little bit higher, but the tendency was very clear. There is a fragmentation of the innovation ecosystem. Next, we ask, but what limits the research organization's ability to conduct research activities in collaboration with the private sector? First and foremost, all 3 Baltic states, funding. So it's either public funding or private funding, and regulatory challenges. Besides that, win-win opportunities came up in Estonia and Lithuania, as you can see. So it's an ability to actually find an alignment, which is beneficial for both parties. And in Latvia, what was mentioned is a very important point, is that the research incentives the lack of, I would say better, the lack of research incentives is a major barrier. And let's have a look at it. When we started asking questions about the motivation of the researchers to conduct RDN activities together with the private sector, to commercialize, a very interesting pattern appeared. And this is that, in essence, the research community focuses on the publication of research basically it's like tautology, but it's focused on the publication of research papers rather than on the output that can be useful for the economy or for the industry. And this is connected to the evaluation system of researchers. They looked at the ranking, how many papers have you produced each year. It affects then the rankings of the universities, and it disincentivizes the research organizations to conduct these activities in collaboration with the private sector. And this is, of course, immediately shows an incredible waste of opportunities, a waste of synergies, and also, to be honest, a waste of public resources. Because if we do not collaborate, all the findings which have been identified, they just stay somewhere in the, in the paper, or they're like, I don't know, on the computer of these researchers. Besides that, this evaluation system of researchers leads to other challenges, or such as, cultural resistance even to conduct collaboration with the private sector, because they say it's not even considered real science if you just do something applied for the industry. So it doesn't have like this, high esteem. Administrative burden, also capabilities on both sides, on the private sector side, on the research side, to conduct this collaboration. So what it shows us, that it's not only financial barriers that are preventing this collaboration, but non-financial barriers, to a large extent, create this gap. Similarly, about commercialization, what has been identified, I will just highlight that there is a very big gap between TRL 3 and TRL 7. Namely, that from the moment there is a concept to the moment there is a prototype, it's very difficult to get. There is not enough support to the research community, and this is the issue. When we asked the respondents to characterize the innovation ecosystem across the 3 Baltic states, generally, again, very similar perspective among all the respondents. They said that, of course, they had a major shock in the 1990s when the scientific base has been destructed. And it's, it takes so many years to kind of recover it. Nevertheless, they acknowledge a very solid base which is being built, but recognize that the pace could be faster. So what are the strengths? The strengths are, of the innovation ecosystems, very similar across the 3 Baltic states. Again, infrastructure, talent, quality of applied research. So actually, if we do something, we do it well, and we have actually the resources to do it. However, the weaknesses, the major trend that appears is innovation culture. So basically, risk-averse innovation culture, fear of experimentation. As a result, also a lack of local demand for innovative products, and a lack of public support, so that the public, of course, should give more support. A very surprising finding, I must say this was one of the shocking things, when we started asking both the foreign investors and the research community about what, in your view, are the key scientific, technological research achievements of your country over the last 4 or 5 years. It was silence. It was almost like this, It was just, oh my God, what can we say? They started thinking about it. Of course, after a while, they pointed to specific either companies which are very innovative, to some publications. But then, looking deeper, it was very clear that even the research community is not aware about what is happening in their field overall nationally. In some cases, they could not even say what happens in their own institution. They could say maybe about their department, they definitely know what they do, but this shows a strategic gap in terms of communication, and once again highlights that this fragmented or siloed ecosystem, it's not just between the public and private sector, but it's even within the public sector itself. Then we asked the foreign investors and the research community, so what are the industries with the high innovation potential? And here you can actually see quite a long list, And there is also a lot of potential in many of them. IT came as a leader, both for foreign investors as well as for the researchers. which shows that actually we can do a lot of things. Yeah, we can do a lot of things in different areas. There are a lot of suggestions in the report, you know, concrete investment opportunities. So I really recommend to read it. But the message from the investors was that the countries are small. We cannot specialize in everything. We cannot be very innovative in everything. It is better to allocate resources to a few prioritized industries and then to push for it. Their selection of the industries, and this is a bit of also the advice to the policymakers while deciding on the strategic focus, industrial focus of the country, is to look at the existing strengths, let's say IT, or let's say in Latvia there was mentioned health tech or med tech, expertise and human capacity. If we do not have people, we cannot invent new things. We will not have also industries which can pick it up. Strategic priorities such as defense or also energy, education, resource endowment came up as a very important thing. The 3 Baltic states have wonderful natural resources, but there is a growing frustration about, okay, why do we export wood instead of furniture? Why can't we transform these raw resources into product services with high added value? Data is definitely a very important enabler of innovation across different industries, and then of course there are innovation spillover effects. Then we asked about the Baltic perspective. So we asked, okay, in which industries would collaboration between the Baltic states in the RD&I sector produce benefits? There are so many of them. Again, of course, defense, manufacturing, professional activities, which in essence are services, energy, IT, financial. The researchers have very similar view. They just added human health and perspective. And the benefits which the research community and the foreign investors highlight over and over: scale. If we would collaborate more, our scale, not just the market scale, but also innovation scale would be bigger. We could boost the resilience, our defense systems, energy infrastructure. There would be international brand, like, you know, we could strengthen our reputation. Some people say, you know, Baltics is like digital tigers, you know, okay, we can sell ourselves better. Greater political voice, and of course, attraction of human capital, attraction of investment. And lastly, the policy instruments, which could help to untap the innovation potential. I will just mention the top 3 for investors: targeted funding for high-valued product development, science commercialization, and then innovation scale-up support. So we can also import or export these innovations abroad. For researchers, similar, only they just added collaborative RD&I funding projects. Overall, the key messages is that the policy instruments themselves will not be effective unless there is a very clear understanding of the priorities. Secondly, there should be an alignment. While we understand what are our priorities, there should be great coordination, which then should filter into the system, and the priority should be given not to independent siloed projects conducted here and there, and then nobody knows about their outcome. Nobody can utilize these results. But it should be about connecting, building bridges. And that's why, at the moment, what was also mentioned is that all 3 countries lack these powerful drivers for innovation, because research community, they do not understand how the market works so well. They need input from the industry. Small companies, startups also do not have the resources, capabilities to go for it. That's why it was mentioned that the large companies, either state-owned companies, private companies, should be these companies, these drivers with industrial vision or mission to go forward, to connect a lot of different stakeholders along the value chain, to utilize the output of the research organization. And only then we can really succeed and become leaders in specific areas. Funding remains very important. Nevertheless, the non-financial barriers, especially our risk-averse culture and the administrative burden, should be addressed. And lastly, I would call on behalf of all the interviewees, respondents with whom we have spoken, is that we should step away from just being resilient and stable and, you know, showing this, you know, solid ground for everyone, to becoming innovative, competitive, and ambitious. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tatjana. Thanks a lot for the presentation, as well for preparing the The report is available from today as well on our website, so you can download as well short version and long version. Long version is very long, but it includes a lot of, I think, useful quotes as well from the investors. I will ask now again Paulina to come on stage and present the results about your research, and this was mainly about startups and scale-ups.
So it's incredible because actually we have 3 studies conducted independently, and I swear it was done independently, and the results and recommendations appear to be very much aligned. So I guess what we are talking about today is the truth, and I'm glad that you are here to listen to these findings and hopefully to implement these recommendations. So who am I, why am I here, and what are we doing? I will talk very quickly about the EIB group, why we did this work, and what are the preliminary findings and recommendations of this innovation ecosystem assessment. The EIB group is composed of 2 institutions, the European Investment Bank and the European Investment Fund. You will get to know the European Investment Fund CEO this afternoon. Marjut Falkstedt will be joining one of the panels, and she will give you more insights also from the perspective of a venture capital investor. Our priorities are centered around 8 strategic topics. You will see they are very much aligned with what Latvia is focusing on. So it's all about climate, security and defense. It's about cohesion, agriculture, bioeconomy, and very much at the core, digitalization and innovation, which we will talk about today. The European Investment Bank is a massive provider of capital. Last year, we invested over 100 billion euros globally. And out of this, 381 million was invested in Latvia. What is important is that the EIB group is not just a finance provider. It's actually a partner, a supporter for long-term growth and development. And how do we do this? By providing lending, but also blending. Blending, it's not just a blender, it means putting together grants with loans as a blended finance instrument, and advisory. So today is all about advisory. With advisory support, we are helping institutions like LIAA, our partner, to develop thriving ecosystems, to develop future pipelines for the bank, future growth companies, success stories. So here a quick snapshot of what we did in Latvia last year. It was a record year. 381 million was invested with some key companies such as Latvian, Riga Udens, Altum is a major partner of ours, and we are also providing advisory support, as mentioned, to the Latvian investment agency, LIAA, but also we are working with the Ministry of Defense on structuring a project, a public-private partnership in the security and defense space. We are working on affordable housing solutions. We are working with Riga's forests. So we are also really helping from the bottom up to build the future and future investment opportunities. The scale of the work of the EIB is, as I mentioned, really impressive. So the amount that we invested last year, those 381 million euros, they correspond almost to 1% of Latvia's GDP. So I'm really proud to say that the impact is real, it is large, and it is visible. Moving on to this innovation ecosystem work that we are conducting for LIAA. We call it the Future Finance Program. It has been so far implemented in Spain, Italy, Croatia, Poland, and now, as the latest joiner, very proud to say, in Latvia. It is all about skilling up the ecosystem, about connecting investors, and also providing mentoring. Specifically in Latvia, our priorities are to boost the success of existing programs, to leverage international best practices, and to strengthen the overall ecosystem. And the first step to do this was to assess the current situation and assess the market needs. We did this by consulting over 50 stakeholders. Some of you may have also been at the workshop we conducted at the Startup House. We conducted many one-on-one interviews, desk research, and compared those results with international peers. Now, what emerges is a very interesting snapshot of the Latvian innovation ecosystem. First of all, it is absolutely concentrated in Riga. Here you can see a picture of where the startups are located. Out of the 500 startups in Latvia, you see 10 are in Latgale. 450 are in Riga. So we have a very concentrated situation. In terms of the sectors that these startups represent, most of it is fintech, it is AI, deep tech, dual use, security and defense. And we have seen clearly a strong focus on deep tech. 26% of the startups are active in deep tech, and 30% of Latvia's workforce is actually also deep tech focused. However, there are, of course, challenges. And we see that Latvia's ecosystem is really lagging behind international peers, including Baltic peers. The first data point we looked at was the access and use of European Union funding. EIC stands for European Innovation Council. What I like to say, this is where unicorns are made. This is where they get their money, this is where they grow. You can see a map of, this is the cumulative number of EIC beneficiaries. So those beneficiaries, they receive really large grants, and also this is often complemented by direct equity investments. And how many? It's four beneficiaries in Latvia. Actually, out of these four, it is only 3 in this early stage program, the Pathfinder, and then 1 in the later stage program. So actually 1, let's say, growing company in Latvia that took advantage of this opportunity. Why? So what we discovered through interviews is that a large reason is actually an early dropout rate. So the companies actually don't even apply. They mention a lack of specialized advisory support, issues filling out the applications, and maybe also they are too low in their phases of development to even be eligible for it. And also a lack of co-financing mechanisms. So many of the European Union programs require some kind of co-financing, and Latvian companies have mentioned that they would not know where to find it. So I'm actually quite sad by this picture, especially when comparing even to the Baltic neighbors, Lithuania and Estonia, that have 17 and 15 beneficiaries each. My home country, Poland, having 52, or Finland 58. I think we can really do more. Now, another shocking statistic. 70% of Latvian scale-ups relocated outside of the country. So what we see is that once Latvian companies hit a certain growth stage, when they scale up, they move abroad. Why? For various reasons. One is obviously limited access to growth funding here in Latvia, but there are also structural reasons, such as lacking the access to a skilled talent pool, lacking the workforce, and the overall population decline. So we have identified some structural barriers that overall impact the Latvian ecosystem. And let me just summarize these quickly. So we talked about the European Union funding challenges, lack of a national co-financing instrument that would help address it. The second one is lack of access to private capital, which is also an issue. Access to venture capital scale-up funding, which remains limited. The third point is fragmentation. So I think a lot of the previous speakers also spoke about fragmentation, the ecosystem having a weak coordination. A lot of what we see here relies on personal networks. So when I was in the startup house talking to the startups and I asked them, where do you go for advice? Where do you go for support? Maybe somebody told me, well, there used to be this lady working at this institution, but now this lady left. I don't know now where do I go? So it really relies on those personal networks. Now, what was lacking was a kind of coordinated vision and coordinated approach. The valley of death is where potential unicorns go to die. It is at TRL 4 to 6 in Latvia. We also see a lack of piloting opportunities. And finally, the megatrends. So the megatrends, the economic megatrends, the demographic megatrends, which are affecting the ecosystem development. So what does EIB advisory recommend? And please bear in mind, these are preliminary findings. So we are working on this program together with the Latvian, with LIAA. The preliminary recommendations, I will mention them now. They include creating a single entry point to European Union funding, one access point, one place, so that the startups don't have to rely on the colleague, ex-colleague, former partner for getting information. There will be one place where they get it. Actual guidance, structured advisory support helping address specific needs. And we have seen from the interviews that maybe some of the companies here, they don't know how to create a financial model that is in line with international standards. They maybe don't know how to prepare investor materials, investment presentations in line with international standards. So what we suggest, what EIB advisory suggests, is that there will be additional advisory support to help startups in Latvia guide them through the creation of these documents. With relevant trainings as well, so skilling up and creating high visibility. So we suggest doing this through a number of points. So creating a navigation point, creating a co-financing mechanism, taking more risk, collaborating more, not only between the Baltics, with the Baltic states, but also with the Nordics. So coming from the perspective of a Luxembourg-based international European investor, I think I cannot stress enough how important it is for Latvian companies, for Latvia to collaborate with their Baltic partners, to consider themselves in this broader international context, and then to also gain advantages from the location of the Nordic countries and learn from them. We also have a really nice idea, the give back to Latvia concept. So another way of supporting the development of innovation here would be to create a kind of mentoring program where you try to bring back the Latvians that emigrated, try to get their skills, maybe engage them in training, in mentoring, in helping the local companies with the skills that those Latvians have gained abroad. And finally, leveraging Riga. So we have seen that almost all the startup and innovation is happening in Riga. So let's make this an actual competitive advantage and leverage Riga as a focal point. So if you take away one thing from today, and maybe you are a startup looking for funding, I want to tell you that we have now launched this unique website, this unique access point, which will guide you to the financing that is available. This is something that we have done for LIAA. So on this website, and please, I do encourage you to take note of the link, you will see all the EU funding that is available in one place. You can search it by TRL, by sector, by type of company, growth stage, very detailed search criteria are possible. And then we have also created a dedicated website for Latvia specifically, listing also on top of the European programs accessible across the EU, listing the Latvia-specific points. And it doesn't end at this. We are providing the training as well, so taking actually resources from some of the top business schools in the world. There are videos, there are templates, so really there is support available, how to fill out those application forms to get access to those grants, and everything is in one place. So those issues we have identified. I hope that in 1 year when I come back, at least there will not be a complaint that we don't have a one ecosystem, a place where a company can learn how to apply, learn which funding is available, and get support with it. And as I mentioned, this is the results of the study are preliminary. The website is live, but we are not done. We're just getting started, actually. So the next chapter of our collaboration with LIAA will also include RTU, also a partner of today, and we are starting to look at smart specialization sectors in Latvia. So EIB advisory will now help assess which are the sectors in Latvia where there is a distinct competitive advantage, which are the sectors that could become a top priority for development, and we will be providing recommendations to the ecosystem, to the government, on how to then develop those specific areas further and strengthen as such this, create, first of all, a strategy for the development of the ecosystem and to strengthen it. So I hope that this is useful, and I look forward to the next chapter of our collaboration. Thank you.
Thank you, Paulina, and thanks a lot also for this hands-on ideas you have or projects you have. So I think this will really help to foster this innovation ecosystem. We have now time. We're a bit behind our schedule, but I think we will manage to catch up a bit later. We have now time for the first panel to reflect on the findings we have seen, a lot of information, and I would ask Kata Fredheim on the stage, and she will introduce it to the panel.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Really lovely to see you. We are now a little bit delayed, so you might have to wait for your coffee and cakes just a little bit longer. But I think we have a very interesting panel in front of us, so bear with us. I would like to invite to the stage our speakers today, one by one, and I think they really represent what this event is about. Beyond borders, investment and innovation in the Baltics. So we will have representatives, truly a pan-Baltic panel. Here we are. And in the order in which you're listed, I will ask you, so you know when you're coming up. May I invite Ieva Jāgere, the Director General of the Latvian Investment Agency. Please have a seat. And Paulina, may we have you back for the third time? So for those who missed it, she is from EIB. Third, for gender diversity, but also for his expertise, we have Robert Grunke, who is a senior economist at the OECD. Thank you. Please have a seat. From Estonia, Miriam Erma, the head of investment and management at the Enterprise Estonia Agency. And last but not least, Vida Staskoiniene, the Investment Department Director of Invest Lithuania. So we have some questions that we sent to you, but I was wondering if we should start with the official questions or secrets. What would you like to start with? Shall we start with secrets? Yeah. Can you tell our audience something unexpected that investors should know about our region, but they don't know about, that some companies should know about, but it's not in the booklets, it's not in the research, it's like our secret? And the microphones are on your side.
I can start. Hello. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. So I was thinking about that actually yesterday, and one of the things I would like to say is that I don't think the investors actually acknowledge how well interconnected we are through the whole Baltic ecosystem actually is, because we are very small economies and very small region, so we actually work very closely together already. And the other thing is the adaptivity. We are small and we are fast, and we can actually make things happen very quickly, and this is one of our strengths. So, and I think it's very often very underestimated among the investors.
Thank you. Any other secrets to whisper? Maybe one more.
Yeah, I actually would agree with the colleague from Estonia. So we also pitched to our investors that Lithuania is really very agile and very fast country. Our government is very related to the businesses, and you can sit together with the head of Bank of Lithuania, our Minister of Economy and Innovation, and just discuss the regulatory issues, and you can get everything you need. So we are really fast, agile, and we are very connected to our business.
Thank you. Yeah.
And yeah, maybe a couple of words from my side. I totally agree with colleagues. The speed, which is very important for the investors and for the investments, and also the quality, speed and quality. And both you can get in the Baltics, in Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia.
And what else I would like to add? The competition between our countries is good because it makes our agencies to be a bit sharp, but also we collaborate a lot and we are very proactive. So this is kind of really good thing, because in other European countries, bigger ones, so agents are not so proactive. They are kind of waiting for companies to come and invest. But we compete in each event. I can see the colleagues from Estonia, colleagues from Latvia, and actually it helps us to get attention from the foreign investors.
Thank you.
Maybe two things that I would like to mention, also as colleague mentioned, the very closeness to decision makers within the Central Europe is actually not that easy to get to the decision makers. So to sit around the table and discuss the investment projects so at hand with the government officials is the one thing. And I think the competition, as mentioned, can be a good thing, definitely, because I think each country has its own pluses, strengths and minuses. And I think with this, we can actually make the region way stronger than actually highlighting those, well, actually by highlighting those strengths within each country. So, yeah.
Thank you. Yes?
They also, I also have a secret to share, although with today's panel composition, maybe it is an open secret. What came out of this investment survey that we conducted last year is that Latvia ranks #1 from all 27 European member states in terms of gender equality in the workplace when we looked at the number of women in leadership roles and female ownership of companies.
Thank you.
It is not reflected in the equal pay assessment, but the numbers are represented, and we can see it also today.
Yes, Paulina, only that doesn't help or support our demographic situation.
Let's not address the demographic. Megatrends will come later.
Yeah, that's true.
Let's go with gender diversity. Yeah.
Hello? Yeah. Yes, although the OECD bases its recommendations mostly on comparable cost-country data, that's all value added, I would still try to share the open secret that I think there has been quite some developments in the last years on structural reforms in the capital market, banking market sector, but also in other areas like insolvency regimes, judicial efficiency. So I think the country is on a good path.
Thank you. So was any of this a secret for you? Did you know about this, dear audience? Sort of. I wish we had a Kahoot. But we're going to move on to the first official question. You know, one of the things I love about the Baltics is the sea, and sometimes by the sea you find a piece of amber, and you look at it, and you look at what's in it. I would like us to do that with the Baltic states now. If you look in your amber, what do you think are the largest innovation-driven opportunities in our region?
I can start again, perhaps. What I have seen, I think two of the things that mainly every European country talks about today is energy and defense. So dual use, definitely defense-related innovation, as they say nowadays, that when you're not in Ukraine, you're not actually part of the defense sector. So there is a lot of defense innovation being done, also by the Estonian companies, and I'm sure that it stays the same also for other Baltic countries. So I see that defense, as it's gaining so much attention at the moment because of the security and resilience situation, this is definitely one of the biggest opportunities at the moment. What I also see is deep tech, definitely. There are a number of initiatives in the Baltics and also in the Nordics to enhance the deep tech sector furthermore and to get more capital to the deep tech sector. And of course, what I am a fan of and I'd like to see more happening is the valorization of local resources. That's being said with the resilience words on top. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would also agree that the defense and dual use segment is also really attracting attention from foreign investors and the local ones. So there is a huge attention from our government, and we established a green corridor for defense companies in Lithuania to get this, you know, they can start building the facility even without the building permits. So actually they can receive a zero tax on the income tax and so on. So lots of support and grants for this sector. But another sector that I would like to mention is life sciences industry. So we have this Lithuanian company that has an ambition to build a biocity in Lithuania with 7 billion investments. And actually they are trying to get attention from foreign companies to collaborate. Also they are working with MIT University from United States to establish a laboratory here. So this is a huge potential for Lithuania. Yeah, but deep tech, all this IT sector is also very important. As we see, Lithuania's startup ecosystem is growing very fast. It grew like 6 times since 2020. So I think the evaluation is about 16.4 billion, and it attracts more and more investments. We have 5 unicorns. So there is a lot of potential in the IT and ICT sectors.
Thank you.
Yes, I can agree with Vida and Miriam, the same sectors and the same priorities. Also in Latvia, ICT, artificial intelligence, everything related to technologies actually, because we see that we have these capabilities, we have talents, we have infrastructure, and we have ambitions. The only thing we are lacking, not only, but a very crucial one, mentioned by Paulina, is how to scale it.
To scale.
Maybe to complement on this, indeed, deep tech was identified by us as a key sector that has a lot of potential in Latvia. the level of the research and the level of the technology in Latvia is not below par when compared to European peers. So it is there. But the issue with this kind of deep tech and with life sciences especially are the long development cycles. So, you know, to develop, for example, a new drug, it takes 10, 15 years. And this requires what bankers like to call patient capital. So investments that support you throughout these growth phases, slowly and patiently. And this is indeed the challenge here.
Maybe if I could add as well. I think the OECD in this discussion would make the argument that it's also very important to have horizontal policies, to not try to select from the public sector certain sectors, because probably the private sector has more information about whether certain ideas can succeed or not. So that is very important. And on the secret, I just wanted to add on the discussion before that the secret maybe is that structural and horizontal reforms, they take time to materialize and to have effects. So some patience is also important in this discussion.
Patience. The next one.
Acting, but then not expecting results like 1 year afterwards. For example, education reform has effects only like in 5-10 years.
Thank you. I'm glad education being mentioned again. I think we have a couple of graphs later on which we can reflect on. You know the joke that an Estonian, a Lithuanian, and a Latvian walk into a bar? Do you know that joke? Or a version of it? Yeah, I started, and then I'm not going to make the panelists do jokes. We can do that in the coffee break, okay? That would be a bit awkward. But there's so much that these countries actually share. The challenges, the opportunities, the strengths, and the weaknesses. And you already spoke about collaboration between competition, but also collaboration between the three countries. I was wondering, how do you foresee collaboration as becoming a strength between the three countries? Do you have plans for that? Do you have initiatives? How does that work in practice for you?
I can start this one, yes. So first, we have to switch our mindset from local, just focusing on our own country, to the regional one. So we are thinking on the Baltics level, because we know that visibility plays a crucial role when you want to become international, to compete on the international level. And if you compete, for example, the marketing budget for one country, or for let's put together all three countries' budget, 3 times more we have, and to get the visibility, also 3 times more. The first thing, what we have done already. Actually, last week and also 1 month ago, we met already with Lithuanian and Estonian colleagues from investment agencies and innovation agencies, and we sat together around one table and we started to talk. Let's do something together. Let's increase our competitiveness. Let's do activities together. And now, after last week, we have already a plan, which is a great success. So we will do common events, and we see that this cooperation is very crucial. And this understanding is not only from Latvian side, but also from Lithuanian and Estonian side. They can confirm that. So these are very good first steps in our collaboration. Yeah, maybe this is, I started.
Well, maybe
this is collaboration.
Yes, I think as Ieva also mentioned, indeed, last week was one of the many meetings that we've had actually to identify the sectors and the markets where we actually can be visible all together. When talking to investors, I think the biggest problem for our region is that they don't know that much about us. So when they come here, they're very much surprised how much we do and how fast we are and how innovative we are. So gaining the visibility, especially in the faraway markets, is something that we see that we could work very closely together, and in different sectors as well. So as Ieva mentioned, there are first steps being done towards that to identify also the conferences and where we can actually be there as a region and highlight our strengths and value chains, because it's not only the grants in terms of innovation that we offer or what we do, it's the whole ecosystem, innovation ecosystem, that's very, very much important. And I think there are couple of steps that needs aligning. It needs the testing, the sandboxes, needs harmonizing well, the sandbox kind of regulations need harmonizing. I think we need key initiatives, and we need to agree on key initiatives, where to, and the first steps, how to proceed. And I think that was mentioned a couple of times as well, is the EU funding, the access to EU funding. And I see that sometimes working together with different countries and the research institutes from them and applying for these EU programs could be beneficial to do together and not alone. So.
Thank you. So yeah, actually we are seen as one Baltic region from the foreign investors' perspective. So basically when we have a meeting with a potential investor, they always ask, what are your collaboration with other Baltic countries? Do you collaborate on defense projects? Do you collaborate in startup ecosystem or sandboxes? So actually this is true that we have to do those projects all together. But also we have really good experience already in collaboration. So since last year we had your minister coming to Lithuania to learn about our green corridor, and I know that you are going to introduce that green corridor in Estonia as well. We had meeting with the Latvian colleagues several times already, so there will be an event next week, I believe, about the aftercare what we give to our customers in our country. So we'll share this experience as well. And Baltic Spotlight event is forthcoming for faraway markets like US or Asian markets, so we will discuss this later on as well. So we see a lot of opportunities and a lot of collaboration opportunities, and we're keen to share our expertise as well.
Thank you.
Maybe also very concretely speaking about joint investment opportunities. These also exist. One of a really good success story is the Baltic Innovation Fund, now in its third edition. So Altum, ILTE and SmartCap, the three of them came together with the European Investment Fund to create a dedicated investment vehicle, which is the fund is it's a fund of funds investing in funds from the three Baltic states. So third time we are doing this, and there are other opportunities or similar opportunities could be found for joint investment.
Thank you.
Okay, and just to add, I think there's a lot of areas where cooperation would be very beneficial. Innovation, university cooperation, building clusters around certain technologies, infrastructure planning. I think Rail Baltica is an example where cooperation needs to improve and will improve. Electricity, energy, grid markets, but also capital market development. As you mentioned, the IPO fund is a very important development that has been established. A common derivative market would be something that should be developed to attract international institutional investors. The MSCI Baltic is a good example as well. Unfortunately, still classified as a foreign frontier market. So this is a problem. So the goal is to be classified as emerging market to be able to attract international institutional investors. So that's all important areas for more cooperation.
Thank you. So we're making a hamburger here. We spoke a lot about the good things now. Let's look at some of the challenges. And I actually have, if this works, the slide back about what are the weaknesses of the niche national ecosystem on each side. And I don't want to make you turn around, but there's a beautiful, beautiful graph behind you. So my question is, the Prime Minister said that, the government really doesn't want to shake business. Well, we can maybe talk about not shaking it, but shaking it up a little. What would be the national policies, the instruments the actions very concretely that would help take the Baltics to the next level in your mind? Also bearing in mind what was in the report. Maybe we could start with someone else, because we have a very strict pattern here. What do you think? Let's start there.
Okay. I mean, there's several points we could make, but as you're talking about shaking up and shaking up innovation and like trying to incentivize firms to innovate more, I think competition enforcement is something that is maybe not so present at the moment in the discussion. And in the last Latvia, economic survey of Latvia, we had several key recommendations on strengthening the power of the Competition Council in Latvia, which has not too much power to enforce competitive neutrality, for example, of state-owned enterprises. So state-owned enterprises have still a large scope, very numerous in Latvia, especially. So I'm talking mostly about Latvia because I'm the senior economist on Latvia. So maybe we should have clarified this before, but yeah, our research is on Latvia. So this is important because you also in the discussion, large state-owned enterprises in Latvia also often brought up as important players. They should lead innovation, but for that to happen, you need to have some competition. You need to force incumbents also to innovate and to be more productive. And I think this is a really important area.
Thank you.
I'll start again. I think, as you mentioned, incumbents and big companies actually working together with innovative, smaller companies. I think what we've seen, and actually that's in almost every country, the problem that the local demand for innovative products. And I've seen in Estonia, it's the same problem that big companies that actually would have the capacity to test, because innovation, it's testing, and it's piloting, it's validation, and usually this is the first place that is this kind of lacking in countries. So to do it together, or I don't know, it could be different programs to motivate those bigger companies to work together with startups that do innovation a bit more is the one thing. And then of course handing out grants is nice, but getting the first references and then helping them scale is definitely, as mentioned before, one very, very big thing that needs to be better. By the way, Estonia launched beginning of this month something called Innovation Loan, which is actually precisely for companies and startups that want to commercialize and scale their innovation. So I hope this would enhance the innovation in Estonia even more.
Thank you.
Actually, you know, we're not low-cost countries anymore, and for investments, we compete with other Western European countries, which are, you know, big in local demand, and we are kind of a small markets. So from Invest Lithuania side, actually, we are working only with investment attraction. Since last year, we started to work with large Lithuanian corporations, helping them to expand in Lithuania, because we now are competing with other countries for their investments. So Lithuanian companies are already investing somewhere else, investing in the US, in Latvia, in Poland, and some other countries. So basically, Lithuania is keen to save those investments, to retain them, and there are some funding available for them as well. So in those areas, when we look at our pipeline from foreign investors, we see a lot of scale-up companies, and the problem is that we do not have an incentive program or funding available for them. And I believe the same problem is in Estonia and Latvia as well. So now we are talking with our government how to attract those companies, what funding could be available for them in order for them to invest and to choose one of our countries.
Thank you.
Yes, of course, the innovation element is very important in large companies, but also as well in the startup and small companies. And what we see in Latvia, that actually there are lots of good ideas. Really, we can't say that there are no ideas, but what we lack, this is commercialization. Because, for example, for the researchers, there's a big gap between researchers and entrepreneurs. For them, the main goal is to work on this innovation or the research and then make it public, and that's it. No commercialization. Where is the incentives for the commercialization? Our goal is not to make it public. Our goal is to make it a business from that, to commercialize that. And this is where we have to do more and find the solutions for that.
Thank you.
So one such solution could be so-called CVC, corporate venture capital, which actually also in our assessment we found was underdeveloped in Latvia. So it's when the corporates directly are investing into new ideas and new technologies. Technology transfer, so this is one aspect that we will be now working on also with Riga Technical University as part of part 2 of our program. It's tremendously difficult to implement, so especially in systems where education is public. There's a huge challenge in terms of bureaucracy to implement well-functioning tech transfer systems or set up those TTO funds and offices. But definitely it is something we will be looking at together as well.
Thank you.
Okay, and maybe to shake up the discussion a bit more, we also think that financial markets and access to finance is a major barrier. We have a chapter on investment in the last survey. But if you look at the data, and the OECD has quite interesting microdata where we look at business dynamism and productivity dynamics across countries, it's quite interesting to see that in Latvia, a lot of firms actually stay small, don't grow, but not only because of access to finance issues, but also because of a missing reallocation from smaller, less productive, often even partly informal, negative equity firms towards the firms that are more productive and can innovate. And a lot of those barriers have been reduced in the last years, so we will probably see effects like insolvency regimes and so on, but there's still some issues like costs of filing insolvency is quite high, so especially in services for the smaller companies where actually it would be more beneficial for the single owner to move to a bigger firm and transfer his knowledge or like participate and solve the skilled labor shortage. And another point I wanted to make is, because we talked about vocational education and training and the role of the state, but I think it's also a responsibility of the firms to invest in training. And the problem in Latvia is that you have a lot of small firms and they are not organized in business associations. So a very low share, I think Latvia is on the lowest part across the OECD of shares of firms in a sector organized in business associations. And so there's little cooperation on training, vocational education and training, and this needs to be improved. And one vehicle would be a skill fund where firms have to contribute, and so there's more ownership to cooperate with the VET institutes and so on. I think the skill fund has been implemented now, but the share of the contribution of the firms is still very low. So EU funding is mostly financing this. So maybe that could be a solution to increase this share in funding from firms. But yeah, it's also a change of culture, so it's also important.
Thank you. Could you keep the microphone just a sec? I have a very specific question to you. If you had one priority to give to policymakers, what would be the one thing that moves the needle, that makes a big difference? One.
I think it's a very difficult question because at the OECD we really look at the interlinkage of the different policy areas and the package of reforms. But if you look at the last 10 to 15 years, economic development in Latvia, so still speaking about Latvia mostly, is actually access to finances. It has been a major barrier in Latvia, especially if you compare it to Lithuania and Estonia, where lending has actually recovered after the great financial crisis much more than in Latvia. And we have discussed several approaches, recommendations. It's also a multifaceted area, but probably having better competition enforcement in financial markets is one point. And as well as development of the venture capital sector. So this IPO fund is a good step. Then this MSCI Baltic index, like attracting institutional investors to Latvia is important. And the third point maybe to make is a big advantage that Latvia still has, and where the other neighbors have actually detracted a bit, is this mandatory pension system, the Pillar 2 system in Latvia. You still have you don't have the option to retrieve the funds. No? I think the other countries, and this is actually a big asset. Like if you look to Sweden, those pension funds, they have contributed a lot to capital market development in Sweden. You just have to do the regulation smarter, and things are moving in the right direction. So returns have improved in Latvia a lot in the last 2-3 years. The central bank has actually done quite some work to improve and to foster competition as well. So I think, yeah, using these pension funds better for also domestic investment is important.
So shaking up, scaling up, and finance. We are in the last minute, so I want to give you the opportunity to do your best elevator pitch. If you were to convince an investor in an elevator, 10 seconds, why the Baltics is the region to be as opposed to the rest of Europe, what would you say? Who wants to go first? And I'm counting. I'm very strict.
Yeah, we actually pitch our talented people. If you come to Lithuania or Latvia or Estonia, we will get the best quality talent here.
Talent. Thank you.
I would say also the talent. I would say the market that we have, the opportunity to work together, the opportunity to test and validate the products, and the ecosystem.
Thank you.
Okay, again, I will continue. Of course, talent, but the most important, the quality of life. So how you will attract the talent, you have to provide the quality of life here.
Thank you.
And for Latvia, I would also add digital infrastructure. Like compared to Germany, actually things are much better here.
Thank you. And famous last words?
And in 3 words, I would say smart, ambitious people and gender equality.
Thank you. May I invite you to give a big applause to our panelists?
Kata was obviously cut off already, but there will be a break now. So yeah, we have 10 to 15 minutes. Yeah, the bell will call you back, and then we will start the next panel and the next keynote. Thank you.